I think as a child, when you're involved in the arts, it allows you to explore avenues of yourself and ways to engage with other people that you might not otherwise have the opportunity to experience.
My only real exposure to the arts in Rocky was the theater, and the reason I bring it up specifically is that in Rocky, when the theater burned down, there was a huge hole that was very noticeable that I hadn't really thought of beforehand.
Well, I didn't really get too much exposure until I actually junior high, I guess, when I moved to Timmins. I grew up in a Francophone community. I was a part of like a theater troupe in high school. They designed a class that you create a play all year long. We write our play, we choreograph everything, and then we tour with the show through all the small communities in Northern Ontario.
I remember in grade 4, I was cast as a lamb in the Christmas show, and I had never done anything really much arts related prior to that, and I really enjoyed it. I remember we had a really good music teacher at the time, and she loved doing, the Christmas show every year, and it was always a big show with lines and music and everything else. It was kind of the big production of the year. And yes, I was lamb number 1, and it was so much fun. I still remember the song from that show, but I enjoyed it so much that my mom then decided to look at other avenues for me to be able to kind of do drama, get engaged in the arts.
It was confined mostly to what was available in school, like drama club, improv club, whatever was at the library at the time. Back then you could borrow movies and watch them on VHS. So here I am, a 10-year-old little girl borrowing things like The Godfather, and nobody would question it.
My mother ran a theater school called Just for Laughs. For a while it was in an old movie theater, and then they moved down the block, but still put on shows at the movie theater. It was a really fun place to kind of be able to grow up in.
It was a very religious and sports heavy town, and when I was in grade 4, my sister watched the movie Cats, and she loved it so much that she decided to put it on in our town. So we actually created our own theater company as kids, and we were able to put advertisements up, and we got a bunch of, basically anyone who didn't play sports came together, and we started doing our own theater stuff.
It was extremely disheartening because I wasn't the strongest student in my earlier years, and I felt that music was my strong suit, and it was where I was confident, where I found confidence, and there was zero respect for that in the schools or really anywhere. So I was kind of treated poorly in that way, and I really felt like I had to hold on to it with 2 hands to keep my sanity, because there was just nowhere else.
Salmon was kind of like a bit of a conservative white bread town on the outside and the inside in lots of ways, but it also had this really surprisingly amazing arts community from the community itself, which had some really cool theater productions in Salmon Arm. And I mean, we're really close to a fairly well-known, incredible theater company called the Caravan Farm Theater that was 20 minutes from the farm that I grew up on, which was really cool. And we had lots of friends who were a part of that. To the schools, which were just surprisingly incredible. I think that was probably the best part of my arts influence in Salmon Arm was the teachers that I had, who were just some of the most passionate and exceptional human beings on the planet. I feel really lucky, and I think because of that, so many people from Salmon Arm go on to either be in arts or go on to do creative work or study art.
Being close to Victoria was helpful because there's a lot of access to stuff through there if you're willing to travel into town. So it was kind of a sense of being in and from a small town, but having access to some of the larger city benefits through Victoria.
My exposure to arts in Airdrie, there wasn't an incredible amount at that time that was going on, but I was fortunate enough to be kind of more present in the arts scene in the Calgary area. My mom would regularly take me into Calgary, the hour drive every week for various different things like improv lessons, drama lessons. Had the opportunity to be in a number of like performances when I was growing up and stuff like that, which was really cool. And did some other kind of like art, more traditional kind of art stuff like pottery and some light painting and stuff. Not that I'm very good.
Learning how to start something and finish it at a very high quality. Learning to work as a group. Those sort of things that theater doesn't just teach you skills, it teaches you life skills. And I tout that to this day, that everything that I've learned in theater school.
When I was 11, my mum passed away, and I think that having that creative outlet for me was a way for me to grieve. I think I actually, there's some specific times I remember like sitting in that hall waiting, like thinking about her and waiting to sort of channel it through my performances, whatever they may have been. Andrea Bishop, this one woman who ran this whole club, was just so supportive of me and constantly giving me the opportunities that I needed and wanted to keep going. Oftentimes it was easy for me to sort of back out and not go back because I was sad that day, but she kind of gave me the strength to keep going back and to use it to work through what I was going through. And what would I have done? What would I have gone to university for? I can't begin to picture anything else that I would have enjoyed and loved and wanted to dedicate my life to as much as theatre.
A lot of what we learn when we're growing up is how we interact with those around us, whether that's on the playground or in classrooms or whatever the case may be. And the arts, I think, because it is a way to essentially, theater specifically anyhow, a way to be someone else is a great way to sort of explore maybe emotions you don't normally experience on a day-to-day basis, or interactions with people that you might not normally engage in. There's a lot more out there to dig your teeth into emotionally and sort of to learn as a person and to experience other ways of living or being in the world that normally day-to-day you wouldn't have the chance.
Not having a lot of resources, but still having the support at play, that was instrumental for giving me permission to kind of touch on and explore this passion.
Things are not going to work out necessarily the way you want it to, but just to kind of forge your own path. I think it's interesting to grow up in a small community because I feel like it makes us have to be more creative.
Finding confidence. And I was able, I became a leader, and I was very, very shy, and so it really shifted my personality, and then it shifted what I wanted.
Having access to these drama classes and stuff allowed me to get in touch with emotional control and to be able to see things from many different perspectives, because when you're putting on a play or whatever, you're getting to see the thought process of all these different characters and then having to embody that yourself, and I feel like it helps with empathy of other people.
From a long time I could watch movies and sad things and sad plays and not cry, and I very viscerally remember many time when I'd be like, don't cry. Yeah, sure, it's a little sad, but I'm not gonna cry. And then nowadays it's anything emotional and just a great story, I can feel emotions about it and cry, and I'm not like, oh God, I'm crying, what's going on? It's oh, this is great. This is a great play. Oh man, I'm loving this. That was a huge emotional, personal difference that arts gave me.
The impact for me as a kid was that I felt really empowered to kind of express my individuality and my creative side, and thankfully to not stifle that, which I think a lot of education does, is stifles creative impulses in kids. And so I think I was really lucky to kind of escape that. And then in terms of the impact on my life beyond that, I went on to study study art and anthropology and archaeology and then design. And so obviously the creative work has kind of like gone through my life. And then also I think creating in large communities and also like seeing people whose creativity has been stifled is really what brought me also to my coaching practice and my like desire to empower other people to be able to create and to like live passionately and do passionate work in the world.
But being exposed to a lot of the, the drama and stuff like that in some of these classes and performances in Calgary, I really got to kind of see the other side of the spectrum and learn, what different opinions were like, what different views and cultures were like, and actually see things from a different point of view.
I think the arts has probably affected me a lot as a person, and the sort of key word for me when I think about how it's affected me is perspective, because everything that we do in the performing arts and arts in general almost unequivocally comes down to an element of story. Growing up, I had sort of a limited worldview in some ways, and it was just all I had was my own experience. And that's grown a lot because of my involvement in the arts and spending so much time with other people's stories. So I think it's really increased my empathy and how different experiences make the world a different place for everybody. And we have to look at that with empathy and consider what kind of world are you living in versus the kind of world that I live in because of our different experiences. And through that, we have to try and share our worlds and see why we make the choices we do instead of judging them.
Music specifically was very important for me. It kept me out of trouble, gave me something to do. And I mean, I knew from a very, very young age, about 5 or 6, that's music is what I wanted to do as a career, as a life. I wanted to be a rock star. I mean, I still kind of do. It took me a while to learn to love myself. But once I did, I opened myself up to the world and realized that we have infinite capacity to love. I don't have it all figured out, but I think I'm in a good spot, and I think emotionally I'm a lot healthier because of my artistic development.
Any sort of fear I felt as a child, I could make go away just thinking about music and song. It was just like this go-to thing that I had, and that's always been my method of dealing with any kind of emotional pain is through music. It's helped me out of like horrible times. Yeah.
The mentorship that was available, that I could go into the cultural center and learn from people that were there. The permission that was given has created opportunity for validation that I would not otherwise have.
Especially young people, as long as they have some sort of an outlet, whether it be part of a regimented program that they're in, or whether it just be, hey, come along and sit in on these rehearsals so you can see what's going on. Just making sure that they're encouraged and they're invited. Anytime the arts comes into your life, it's going to, that's what it's designed to do. It's going to make you think. It's going to open up your heart, your mind, all that kind of stuff.
I really think that communities should have a little bit of everything so that people can try things out and see what it is and understand that there is respect for those people that are doing those things. So I encourage very much so for communities to put as much as they can into the arts and show kids that there is an outlet for their future, for ideas, for being creative, for allowing your brain to flow in whatever direction you want it to go in.
Find someone from a different art community to come in and give their point of view on, since stage is more my focus, if you can find a director from another city, bring them in and do a workshop with them. So your students, your people in the class, just get another point of view.
It was completely extracurricular and volunteer-based. So only the people who wanted to really go went, and so everyone there wanted to be there, instead of like a gym class where you're forced to be there. And so everyone had a good time, and I think because everyone was having a good time, more and more people continued to join. So I think having it be as like open and inviting without being a mandatory course really worked.
For me, as like a polymath and a creative Swiss Army knife that loves to dabble in all of the things, I think I was really empowered to dabble when I was a kid, and that allowed me to like explore a lot of avenues, which totally had a like huge impact on the way that I work now.
You're allowed to be crazy, you're allowed to be you. Where else can you get to do that? And you get to play for however long your rehearsal is. You get to play. And as we get older and older, we're allowed to play when we're kids, little kids. But as we get older and older, we're not allowed to play anymore. It's like the one socially acceptable place that you're allowed to play. And how awesome is that?
All the opportunities that I had in band and in the arts in general was really thanks to groups of people coming together to make that happen. You know, being able to go on trips and participate in festivals isn't cheap. And, you know, you don't maybe realize that when you're, you know, in grade 7, you know, playing the clarinet and you're like, oh, whatever, we're gonna go to Calgary, right? Like, you're not thinking that that's this great experience or the amount of work and effort that goes into it. You know, all you know is you have to do this fundraising thing and you're like, oh, okay. But then I think as an adult, you have a better appreciation of kind of how that all came together. And yeah, the arts is one of those things that does just do a really good job of bringing people together for a common cause.